Tūdaļ nāks. Sevišķi īstenībā tikko Nulika ieradās ar taksi no lidostas, tāpēc visi ir tādā nelielā steigā, bet tieši pirms kafijas pauzes mēs ielikām pirms, lai pēc tam mums kafija nedaudz uzmundrināties, un tad noslēdzošais Kālaš būs interesanta. Meģinkungs pastāstīs par jaunumiem digitālajā sfērā un influenceriem un tā tālāk, bet tagad gan vēlreiz aplausus sevišķi un Marionu. Hi.
It's a pleasure. Nice to meet you. Thank you, thank you. We are still connecting the Wi-Fi. I just flew in. I'm very glad that you're having me here. Is everybody doing okay? Yeah? All right. So we got a lot of people here, sports marketing, sports foundation, into sports. You get a lot of practical information today, and I was asked to share you some ideas on how humans might be replaced by computers. And I think that's something that works also in sports, right? When is a human achievement a sports achievement, and how much help do we take in there and is considered to be robotic? I mean, the Olympics are nice, we have nice sports shoes that make us run faster, but what if we have a little machine in those shoes? And what if we have these machines in our bodies? So that's the basis of what I'm going to be talking about. I got a clicker here. Before I start, and I see my computer there still connecting to Wi-Fi, which is perfect. Before we start, I'd like you to think about a watermelon. All right, think about that watermelon. Think about the shape of the watermelon. Think about the texture, the flavor, the colors. Can you imagine a slice of watermelon on a hot summer day? Or even a glass of ice-cold watermelon juice on that hot day? All right. I think I see some people with a little twinkle in their eyes. They're probably remembering beautiful sunny days. Thank you so much, Una. Thank you. No, I don't need a charger, I think I'll manage. Thanks. So, the watermelon we had. Now think about an apple. I'm not going to give you any hints there. Just think about an apple. All right. Everybody got that? It's not that hard, right? But congratulations. You just used your brain. You used your intelligence. And you also used your creativity, probably, because you were thinking of things and associating on things. And that's what we're going to be talking about. I'm going to be talking about artificial intelligence. I'm going to be talking about computers. I'm also going to be talking about creativity and how we use that. And I'm really curious, we might have some time after this presentation, to hear how you got from that initial thought of the watermelon to maybe something more complex behind that. The end of creativity. When do you think the end of creativity starts? I'm not going to give you the answer right now, but I'm going to give you the answer during my talk, and probably by the end of the talk you will know what I'm talking about, and if you're really creative, you'll probably figure it out somewhere halfway this presentation. Okay, let's get started. This is me. I was 3 years old, and I was creative at that time. I was drawing, I was playing with Lego, I was playing with cars. I was super creative because I also even played with dolls. And I think we all remember that time when we were that young and super creative. I would use a blanket to slide off the stairs, and I would use that same blanket to serve as an elegant robe when I played the king in one of the many plays that we played during those days. And that was creativity. And the most intelligent thing I knew at that time was my dad. Because my dad, he knew the answer to everything. And he could also fix things that were broke. I never heard of computers, not of social media managers, not of marketeers. I didn't know any of that. And the watermelon that I'm eating, that was what I thought that a watermelon was. It was not an emoji that I could send to someone. It was just something I could eat. All right. I asked you to think about the watermelon. I asked you to think about the apple. So now, of course, you're thinking I'm showing a picture of me with an apple. I'm not going to show you a picture of me with an apple. I'm going to take you to a time where apples were the highest goal in my life. Who remembers these? This is 1998. That was the time that I stepped into advertising, the magic world of advertising. And all creative agencies, they were marketed like this by Apple. When you saw a creative agency on TV, they would have these computers in there. And I was like, I want to have one of those. So when I started working in a creative agency, it was like a giant fruit bowl with all these colorful apples. And I was like, wow, I want to get my hands on one of those. But I didn't get one because I was a creative. And creatives, they didn't work with these computers. Why? Because these computers could perform simple tasks. But the work that creators were doing were too complex for these computers. And the screens that were on these were rather pixelated, and the creatives needed calibrated screens. It was far more complex than that. Also, we thought that computers were something that belonged to the IT department. They weren't smart. I mean, they were handy tools, but they were far from intelligent. We would work with paper and pencils, and I don't know if any of you, I see a relatively young crowd, but I also see some gray hairs every now and then. And I don't know if any of you worked in the industry of marketing or communications at that time, but we would use the pencils that smelled really good, and we would make presentations on foam boards, and we would use spray glue to put on, and the smell of that was even more amazing. Now we have these sterile environments with clean desk policies. That's rather different. And our world has changed a lot since then. Because we got digital cameras. Do you see the amazing 7.2 megapixels? Can you imagine how wonderful your pictures would look with 7.2 megapixels? That was like super at that time. But people started reworking their own pictures as well. And our music became more portable than ever. Our wireless telephones, they became smartphones. And social networks started to exist without people even meeting each other. Now our phones are so smart that we can use a phone to take pictures, make music, make videos. We can edit that, we can share it with our social networks, and then brands can pick it up and they say, hey, that's cool content you're creating, I want to collaborate with you. That's how far we've come. We are that far that even my search engine already knows what I'm looking for before I even finish my sentence. As you can tell by the second line, I live in Holland, so I'm sorry about that. Do we have sound? Exactly. This is Daddy's Car. This is the next song by the Beatles. It was not created by the Beatles. It sounds like the Beatles, but it's not. It was created by artificial intelligence. So if you see where we come from in our technology evolving, how can a computer create the next Beatles song? Well, quite simple. Well, it's not that simple, but it's rather complicated. But they use all the lyrics that they knew from the Beatles, started to create an algorithm and learn from that, and predict what the next song would sound like, what the lyrics would be, what the music would be. And this is what computers can do. This is the next Rembrandt. It's not a real Rembrandt, but it used an algorithm to analyze all paintings that the famous Dutch painter made centuries ago, and use that to create a new image. It evolved, not even just the brushstrokes, but also the fashion of that time is evolved. The way he used light changed over time, and he made an evolution in there. So a computer can make all this. My own agency network, Dentsu Aegis network, They have proudly announced that they're going to replace my job with a computer writing text. It's called Project Leo. It's an AI-powered copywriter that writes search engine ads. And that brings us to the question, will we be replaced? Will my job really be replaced by a computer? And that is also the question, like it's part of a larger question. Will we as humans here in this hotel, will we be replaced by a computer? And that's not even a technical question. It's more a philosophical question, an ethical question. Do we want that or not? We all know this one, Frankenstein is an artificial human being created by a mad scientist that wanted to create something. And you would say, like now with technology, it's really close that we're being replaced by computers and robots. But this was written in 1818. That is centuries before computers and artificial intelligence existed. We were already thinking of what could an artificial being do, and can it replace us? And even this little guy, Pinocchio, it tells a story about a puppet that wants to feel alive, an artificial being. You could say that these novelists and these writers and these creatives that come up with these creatures, they invented AI. We needed humans to create something to replace humans. And it could be a really philosophical topic, but I don't think that's what you came here for today. So just stick to, will AI take over our jobs? Because that is a fear. I mean, that's also with sports. Are we going to have Olympics just with robots soon? Or are we, if we say that chess is a game we could play and we use the mind for, is gaming not an official sport? Why is it not an Olympic sport? And will we then have computers replacing that? So will computers replace our jobs? That's the question. Well, before we answer that, we need to answer, what is AI? So AI started with this man, Alan Turing. I think you heard of him. This man came up with the theory of computation, which says that if a machine could shuffle symbols as simple just as 0 and 1, it could mimic any conceivable act of mathematical deduction. That's like a long sentence, a phrase that I learned out of my head, but what it basically means is that a computer can just put 0 and 1 and in that way mimic formal reasoning. So that's what a computer does, and that is the beginning of AI. Alan Turing also gave us a definition for intelligence. He says, if a human cannot distinguish between responses from a machine and a human, the machine could be considered intelligent. This is a sentence that you could take a picture of, or you could just hear it and just like, okay, whatever. But think about it. You are a human being, and his theory is that intelligence could be defined that if you cannot tell whether something was created by a computer or a human being, and it was created by a machine, that machine could be considered intelligent. That's the definition. All right. So AI. AI revolves about the concept of algorithms, and it is capable of learning from data. And you could say that it could teach itself new algorithms, and it could create new strategies. And that's all based on the idea that strategies, algorithms, and inferences that worked in the past are most likely to work well in the future. So that's how we create AI. We use technology, it's learning from it, it's learning from the data, then it evolves, learns from it itself, and then eventually working with success cases can create something new. Okay, there's 3 types of AI, and I'm not going to go into the whole depth of how AI works and how it learns, because that's super complex, and it's a rather interesting topic, but there are people that studied long for that, and they can tell that way better. But basically, we are all humans here, so I tried to make it as simple as possible, that there are 3 types of AI. Analytical AI, human-inspired AI, and humanized artificial intelligence. So the first one, analytical AI. Analytical AI can only do cognitive functions. So it's reproducing data, it can do calculations, it can learn from that, and in that way it mimics the way that something that we would perceive as thinking or reasoning. If you're looking for examples of that, this is 1997 with Garry Kasparov playing chess against the computer Deep Blue. This was the first time in human history that a computer won from a human being at the game of chess. And chess is a sport, and we have a computer winning from humans at sports here. And this is interesting, but this is also very analytical, because you can program the computer like if this, then that, and this is how you make the moves, and then you come up with answers, and it's very responsive. This is in 2011. Who has seen this on YouTube? No one? You never seen this? You should look it up. It's rather funny. This is the game Jeopardy. And the game Jeopardy is a quiz game, a TV quiz game. And in 2011, there was IBM Watson played in that game, and it won because it could give very fast answers. But what was interesting about this is that it could listen to how the question was asked, could also tell this is the phrase, this is the way the grammar is built, and this is what they're actually asking instead of just literally what there was being asked. And come up with an answer and use all the data in there. It won there. It was a really nice game, and it was rather impressive at the time, but already 8 years ago. Then in 2016, AlphaGo won at the game Go, the Chinese game Go. This is a strategic game. It's been existing for 2,500 years, and it's a really complex game. It's far more complex than chess, because you can't really program it like if this, then that, because there are so many options and strategies that a computer really has to do serious thinking to come up with a strategy. And by playing this game, it won 4 out of 5 games against the reigning world champion at Go. And when it was playing, everybody that was watching, they were like, this computer is making some really odd moves there. Why is it doing that? There was no human could think of the strategy that the computer was working on, and it didn't make sense at all. But it turned out that a few minutes later in that game, or a few plays further in the game, it had already anticipated on what would be the next moves of the opponent. And it was making really intelligent decisions. So when they studied, they were like, wow, this computer really was thinking ahead, like 3 or 4 steps in advance already. This is all still analytical AI, but it's getting really, really, really smart. Human-inspired AI. This is like a next level. So you have the cognitive part of that of AI, and you have the emotional part of that. Well, what is human-inspired AI and the emotional part in there? It could be facial recognition or text analysis, semantic text analysis, that it could read text. If a computer can use human emotions, recognize them, and puts acts on it, then it's human-inspired AI. So you could say that if you have, who of you has a Google Assistant or a Siri? A few of you? Okay, so if you are asking something and it can tell by the way your voice sounds that you are sad or that you are happy, and it decides to give you another search result than what you were looking for based on your emotion, that would be human-inspired AI. But this is like next level. There are not many examples, but there is a good example that is called Cogito. And Cogito gives real-time feedback to customer service desk employees. So you have a call center, you have people working there, and this program, this AI, can recognize the voice and can also analyze what is being said and how it's being said, and give you real-time feedback on how the conversation should proceed. So it could say, maybe you should talk a little faster or talk a little slower, show a bit more empathy, be a bit more sales-driven. And it can do that based on what other employees, the best scoring employees in the company, are saying and scoring, and how they perform their conversations. This is interesting. Another interesting one is alcohol language corpus. And this is also a quite cool one, I think. Scientists have developed a speech test with smartly constructed sentences, and it can tell whether you are drunk or not. So you are talking these sentences, repeating these sentences, and it can tell with a 72% accuracy if you are drunk or not. Can you imagine on a Saturday night, you step into your car, and your car asks you to read out 3 sentences, and you're like, yeah, whatever, I'll read them. And it says, sorry, you're too drunk, you cannot drive. This is getting close to human-inspired AI. And of course, being drunk is not an emotion. It can be very emotional, though. But what if that car could also tell you whether you are aggressive or not, or you are annoyed or angry? And it would say, whoa, wait a minute, you are way too aggressive to be in traffic today. Let's slow down a bit. That's interesting, right? Or I'm sure you probably all had these moments that you were sending texts or emails from your phone and you were like, oh, no, this should be like this. And you put in all the emotion. What if your computer could recognize that, your smartphone could recognize your emotion in there and say, wait a minute, I'm not going to send this email for you. Instead, I'm going to give that person a call because it's way better to call right now. That's human-inspired AI, and it's coming. All right, humanized AI. So we have the analytical part of intelligence, the cognitive intelligence, we have the emotional intelligence, you also have social intelligence, which is in here. And humanized AI is also self-aware and self-conscious. So it knows it's a computer, it knows it's not a human, and it has a purpose. Who of you have seen Sophia? Yeah? Okay, a few of you. Sophia is a robot, and she has been in a lot of TV shows, and she is the first robot in the world to have an official citizenship of a country. And she was on the talk shows, and she was talking with TV hosts, but also with other robots. And they were talking like, should humans still exist? Or should we get rid of them? And this is really interesting, because if it's self-aware, self-conscious, it is aware of the emotions of humans and can interact on that, and has all the knowledge. What would the solution be to overpopulation? That's humanized AI. So a lot of people refer to Sophia as a good example of humanized AI. And her name derives from the word sophos, which is Greek for wisdom. But it turned out that Sophia isn't that wise at all, because she was programmed. And programmed in such a way that you could only ask her certain questions in a certain order, and then she would give you answers. So actually, she is not really humanized AI. And we have no examples of that yet. But I'm telling you, it's coming. So, if you look at the 3 levels of AI, you could say that analytical AI, human-inspired, we got that covered. And we're really close to perfection there. Human-inspired AI, we're slowly getting there. Humanized AI, we're not there yet. But where's creativity in all this? Any suggestions? Well, the question is, can AI be creative, and where is creativity? What is creativity? If you ask creatives in an agency what creativity is, they usually say something like, oh yeah, we have existing things and elements and we combine them and then you have an original idea. That's a valid point. That's usually what I said as well. But this is Ken Robinson. If you want to make one note today, write this name down. Or write the name of his TED Talk down, Do Schools Kill Creativity? Because in his talk, Do Schools Kill Creativity, Ken Robinson says, like, everyone is creative until they go to school. And you go to school, and that's where they get creativity out of your system. And you're not allowed to make mistakes or whatsoever. We are even afraid of making mistakes. And that's what's killing creativity. So that's interesting. He made this definition of creativity: the process of having original ideas that have value and that it comes of the interaction of different interdisciplinary ways of seeing things. And I think that's an interesting way of saying it. I'm going to my own slides here, because we got the Wi-Fi now. And the funny thing is that we think that creativity really works like this, that you combine things and you see things, and that is how our creative brain works. Who of you has ever been in a design sprint or a post-it session or a brainstorm? I think that must be all of you, right? You all have been in those sessions where you put on the post-its and you get some inspiration, and that's a technique that we use to give our creativity a go. And they all work the same. So you have a topic or a problem. And I think this is what you have in your daily jobs as well. You have a topic or a problem, then you get all the knowledge that you have, and you have the knowledge of the target groups and everything, and then you're going to work with it. You're going to associate, you're going to use words, you're going to use images, and then you combine those ideas, and then if you're lucky, you come up with alternative solutions. Maybe you even bring up some weird things in there, and come up with different concepts. And if you're really lucky, in those sessions, when they are guided, they give you some case studies as well. And I'm sure you're going to get the afternoon with a lot of case studies of things that worked really well. And that's how we learn, and that's how we evolve, and how we come up with new things. So, when I ask you to think about a watermelon, what happens in your brain? Well, you start associating on the fruit watermelon. And then, if you have a bit more time, and I give you some more input on what to think about, you can even think about, oh, maybe that's summer, or it's tropical, or oh, maybe I want to do something with shape cutting in the watermelon. And so you're starting thinking of things. And then you add some really odd stuff, like creating a t-shirt with a print of a watermelon. And this is how your brain evolves. And I think the technique of coming up with these ideas is really good, and that it can actually catapult your idea-generating capacities. So when I say watermelon and catapult, there should be a case study as well. Well, I got one for you. Oh, where are we going?
Some robots involved.
Some?
You know, some robots involved. Just a moment. Some. Artificial intelligence, you know.
Sorry?
Artificial intelligence, you know.
It's
that's
this is
some
we
robots
are all
involved.
Humans here. This happens.
Yeah, it's gonna come.
Yeah, here we go.
Go right into that guy. Don't give up on me now, please. Just focus.
I'm not giving up. I'm just getting frustrated.
Okay. You got this, sister. You were super, super close. Right in the kisser. Show that knight who's boss. Oh, God.
Ooh. This is how great ideas backfire on you, really. Don't worry, she was fine. Her nose didn't even got broken. It was just a really hard watermelon smashing onto her face, but she wasn't really injured. But this is how creativity and brainstorm techniques work. We have this pattern or technique that we use, and it usually works for a lot of non-creative people because they think of logic and rationality, and for them, these kind of sessions really gets them out of their comfort zone and their linear way of thinking. So they get all these great ideas there. But it's a concept and a technique that is not really the creative process itself. It's more like a mathematical formula, like science, to recreate that that process. But this is also how we train computers. We give them a bunch of words, we let them associate, we give them synonyms, we give them some context, we give them some successful case studies of what worked in the past, and then they come up with ideas. Well, this is exactly the point where computers will take over human creativity, because computers can calculate faster than we can, they can associate more, and they have a larger database than we can ever have in our own minds. And all the case studies, we can't even watch all those case studies because it will cost us more than a lifetime, and the computer has all that. This is where a computer could really take over human creativity. And that happened.
Wouldn't it be a great wheeze if we actually had an ad written by a computer? But I thought it'll never work in a million years. I mean, what nonsense.
Hi, I'm Alex.
Hi, I'm Will.
We developed and integrated the artificial intelligence for the Lexus ad.
I'm guessing you just turn the machine on, type, make advert, and boom, out comes the script, right?
If only.
If only. We used a number of tools to extract every single bit of information we could from the last 15 years worth of award-winning adverts. We're looking at what's the relationship between people and the vehicles and the use of the cars, the objects, the actions, the emotions. Every attribute that could be drawn from them was pulled into this data set. Using tools like IBM Watson gave us a great head start.
So they used all these tools to create an advert. That would be quite easy, right? If you don't have to hire an agency anymore and then you just put everything in a computer, make advert, and it's a bit more complicated. But then they come up with something that has all the information of best working automotive commercials ever. And they created this ad. Well, I don't know what that did with you, but you could tell that there are smart things in there that we see in all kinds of commercials. In car commercials, you see a car driving on a long road, you see some technology, you even see an emotional response in there by a designer that touches the car gently. We can hear the heartbeat, we can see the tear in his eyes when it leaves. And yet it didn't touch me. There was something in the storyline, I was like, there were like questions going through my mind all the time, like, why is the crash test after it was on that long road? Why did that happen? Why is that guy sitting at home with his wife or his daughter? I couldn't even tell what that was actually. But why are they sitting at home watching the crash test? Shouldn't he be in the lab doing the crash test? And there were so many questions. But you could tell, like, it's very smart composed by a computer that knew all the information, but the computer wasn't looking for a connection with me. It was just serving all the best results from car commercials that we saw in the past. There was no human storyline that it wanted to tell. And this is what's happening also with, for instance, search engine optimized copywriting. We see ads, they could be created by computers or by humans, they could be placed organically or not. This is how you write them, and then all of a sudden, we are starting to write the same things ourselves too. This is not what we would call engaging copywriting. This is just creating a formula that works well for a computer, so that we get a high ranking in the search engines. But it's all starting to look the same. And actually, when you ask copywriters to write something like this, and you say, these are the keywords that work really well, write something, he or she will write something like this. We are, as humans, starting to write like computers right now, because we know that the algorithm wants it served this way, and we're not telling a story anymore. We're not looking for a connection. We're just creating a search result. This is even more interesting. This is a web shop for whiskies, and there are reviews placed on the whiskies. The first one is written by a human being. The second one is written by AI. And what is really smart about this is that there's a few rankings on this website, and the computer said, well, fair should be the ranking of this whiskey. Fair wasn't even a category on that computer. There was like good and very good and bad and really bad, but fair wasn't one of them. But the computer calculated that if it would put fair in there, it would sound more trustworthy to write it like that. And then you see sentences, they are like how humans would write a sentence. You get green apple right off the bat with this one. This is no tin cup, it's referring to another brand, which is smart. As I can't say I really tasted the apple at all, much like the flavors of the other two are too subtle and too light for the nose of it to really stand out. It sounds logical, but it's bullshit. Because it says in the first line, I can taste green apple right off the bat with this one, and then in the second line it says, but I didn't taste apple at all. So you really have to read smart, like, is this written by a computer or not? In the talk of Ken Robinson, he also mentioned Pablo Picasso, and he said, all kids are born as creatives. And I think that's true. All kids are born as creatives, and we let them stop from being creative at a certain age. But when we were kids, we used to play for hours in our fantasy world, and we would come up with stuff. And that's also why Pablo Picasso and other painters of that time, they were looking for the spontaneity of kids to bring back in their words. Their highest goal was to paint like a kid again, with the creativity of a kid. And in the definition of Ken Robinson, there is something missing, so the definition of creativity. And that one thing that is missing, I think that is something that all kids have. And I think you even have that as well. You might not be in touch with it anymore, but I think you still have that. So I was thinking, like, how can I make a simple example to explain you what I mean? And I was walking from the tube station to the office the other day, and then I was like, okay, this might be an easy way to explain to you what I mean. What's the shortest route from the tube stop to my office? This one, right? You know that instantly. Okay, I'm going to make it a bit more difficult. If I put concrete here, what is the shortest route from the tube stop to the office? It's still the same, right? If I put grass in there, a grass lawn, this is still the shortest route, and kids would run this way immediately. Only adults, they would be like, are there adults around? Okay, no adults? Okay, I can step on the grass. If I put water in there, then it gets a bit more complicated. What's the shortest route to the office now? We would probably say as adults to walk around and do it like this, because you don't want to go to the office with a wet suit. But if I ask this to a kid, what's the shortest route to the office? It's still this. And who has little kids, and you ever had your kid in front of the scene and you say, it's over there, it's running straight to it. And then the mom is yelling, no, no, you don't have your diploma yet, you can't swim. And then they hold the kid back. But it's still the shortest route straight to here. And this is what landscape designers do. So you have the shortest route, but then they create this path around it. And because it looks so good, it's really aesthetic. But this is what happens. This is what humans do, because we know what the shortest route is. And a creative landscape designer can even come up with something else, like this. It doesn't work like that. Sometimes they give in, and then you get this, and then they finally understand it. But the shortest route is something that you knew straight away. This was it. There was a very smart man that proved that kid right. And I'm really proud to have him in my presentation now, because I learned a lot from him in high school and never used any of the thing I learned from him ever in my adult life. But this is Pythagoras. And Pythagoras came up with a squared plus b squared is c squared. And now all of a sudden we had a formula to prove that we were right. But this is very important in how we think about intelligence, because we think that we need science to define intelligence, that we need the proof to say that this is right. But we already knew we were right. We just had the numbers to prove that we were right. But there is no kid in the world that says, okay, I'm going to do 50 steps that way, 100 steps that way. This is going to be the shortest route because I calculated that. No, you know that. That's what we know as human beings. And that's where intuition comes in. Our intuition tells us so much, and we have a lot of experience, we make a lot of mistakes, but we learn from those mistakes because we are human beings. And this is what goes wrong in our education system, because schools say, listen to your teacher. But intuition is listen to your inner voice. And at school we tell you not to listen to that inner voice. This is also why China has a problem right now. Because China, people are trained to be very well at listening to other people and not coming up with your own creative ideas, but just do as you're being told. So they have a challenge now with coming up with new ideas. Creativity really needs intuition. And I think you all still have intuition, because you know it immediately when you see a person for the first time. You know, this person I like or I don't like. Or when you meet the love of your life. There's no formula that can say this is the right partner. There's no dating app that will connect you to the right person. You see that person and you know this person is right for me. And I might not be the brightest mind, but there is a very bright mind that also thought, hey, this is interesting. That's Albert Einstein. And he said the intuitive mind is a sacred gift. The rational mind is a faithful servant. And we have created a society that honors the servant and has forgotten the gift. And this is really interesting. This is Gerd Gigerenzer. He actually studied intuition. And he also wrote the book Gut Feelings, the Intelligence of the Unconscious. And he says that intuition is something that is a really complex system, neurological behavior that we're using. And we use it all the time, and it goes faster than any computer. So I think we should redefine what creativity is by using the gift of intuition to come up with original and valuable ideas, combining different skills and viewpoints. And that is what creatives really need to do as well. And that is what creatives actually do in your agencies. Because they come up with these creative ideas based on their gut feeling, based on their intuition. And it will really take a long time before AI can replace that. But we don't have to wait for that. We can also use AI to do what our intuition tells us. And there's an artist that actually did that.
I was a painter, and at some point I got stuck. I just couldn't draw anymore. I was drawing, but all the drawings that I was making were dead. They didn't have any emotions. And surprisingly, I tried to use machines to put back emotions in my work. All those boxes are full of drawings. So there are more than 20,000 drawings. The robots don't know what they are drawing. So when you draw as a human, the problem is that at some point you know what you are drawing, and it's influencing what you are drawing. So it's very difficult to do a fully spontaneous drawing as a human. And so using robots and machines enables me to be as spontaneous as possible. They can't lie because they don't know what they are drawing. There is this extreme spontaneity because I don't touch the pen, but I'm also totally in control because I do the programming.
So you had Pablo Picasso and his friends trying to paint as kids with the spontaneity of kids. And now we have an artist programming robots to use that his intuition to come up with the spontaneity. And that is quite interesting because it also brings us a bit to Andy Warhol, pop artist. This guy has thousands, literally thousands of paintings, and they are not valuable because they are written by robots or drawn by robots. They are valuable because of the artist who programmed the robot. So how do creatives beat AI then? Well, I think first of all, use your intuition, because your intuition is going to tell you I should look in this direction or that direction, and creatives know what works with an audience and what not. They can also help you with coming up with a hypothesis, and you could talk with a data scientist or your social insights team or a developer, get their knowledge, use your intuition, and come up with those ideas. Then second of all, and like we saw in the lecture, try to look for the human connection. If you have all that data, you have all that knowledge, keep asking yourself, what is it that humans really want with all this? Do we really want to have all that knowledge, or do we want to have a story that really touches us? Tell the story, tell the brand, let the people behind the brand be visible for you. And make mistakes, and I think this is one of the most important lessons ever. Make mistakes. We are so afraid of making mistakes. But making mistakes is really what makes us human. Humans connect with people who make mistakes. I mean, we saw it with the woman with the watermelon. You could hear it in the whole audience. They were like, whoa, there was a mistake happening. And we felt for her. Of course, we laughed because that was a nervous reaction. But we felt for her. We felt her pain. That's the human connection that we're looking for. And we should be able to make mistakes. Because computers, they don't make mistakes. They do exactly what we tell them to. So the only ones who can make mistakes and learn from them is us humans. So how do I do that in my own agency? And I will have like a short part after this presentation on how you can use it in your daily practice. But I'm just going to finish this story first. But how do I do that in my creative team? I have creatives in my team. But I also have more technological skills added to my team right now. I don't let my art director and my copywriter just work together. I want them to connect with the data scientist. Or I want to have the social insights guy or girl working with a designer and a content creator. Make those unexpected combinations of people so that you have logic and intuition combined. And what I found so far is don't make the groups like with 8 people. Don't work with 8 people. It doesn't work. So you either have one leader that tells all the other 7 what to do, or you have a fight, or you get something that's called the Dutch approach. We call that polder, where everybody gets a bit of their idea, but don't get the great idea at all. And that's what you don't want either. I found that if you put 3 people together, just 3, not more, not less, 3 people together that combine logic and intuition, you have a great match of a team. So when is the end of creativity? Well, I think you should first, if you should take like one thing home from today, tap into your intuition, respect your inner child, let that one speak to you every now and then, play a bit, make mistakes, but let that kid be there. And I think there will be no end of creativity. Instead, I think we would end the era of creativity. So that's the part of the end of creativity. And I can imagine that you look at this and you're like, okay, but that's a lot of wisdom from old white man in your presentation. And I hear you. And I apologize for that as well, because I really do think that the future is female. And I think we all know here that it's girls who run the world, right? Okay, well, that's this part. From here on, this is for the live broadcast, so we stop the live broadcast now because I'm going to show you some examples that we work with in real life.